Next question here comes from Carrigan. The Jazz need a point guard. Who would be the perfect fit? Here's what's interesting is I eventually do believe that Keyonte George will be the answer for this team. And so what you're trying to do is because I would agree that yes, it'd be nice to see them have sort of a veteran floor general, but you want someone who is not going, who can either play off of him in the long term or is more of a stopgap to where when he's ready, yeah, maybe they could spend some time with him, but when he is ready to be just the guy, you can move away from them. And so I have a bunch of names here. The ideal fit, I will say, he's not available and you can't be traded at the moment anyway because he signed his extension and then the poison pill and stuff. But LaMelo Ball for this team would look really, really like picture him playing alongside Walker Kessler, Larry Markkinen. He could play next to Keyonte George. That is like the player. And so if we're fast forwarding to the offseason and Charlotte's kind of cratering and LaMelo's getting a little itchy, that's just the name. That's not the name, but that is a name that I'd be interested in. Trying to be a little bit more realistic here, though. So some of these are, I'll start with the ones that I think are super realistic. Tyus Jones in Washington would be a really good game manager to get. He won't turn the ball over. He'll make a lot of good plays in the pocket. He should hit enough of his threes away from the ball to where if you want to try playing him with Keyonte or just give Larry Markkinen some of those from scratch touches. And then he's in an expiring contract. I'd be curious what it takes to get him. And the Jazz are not a team that would normally look at getting this veteran on an expiring contract. You have to give up value and you would have to believe that you're in the play-in chase, try to make the play-in. I don't think they're going to be super interested in that. They have the second worst record in the West right now. But like if you just want some organization there, does 2 seconds get him? If I'm Washington, I might just rather have his bird rights, but Spencer Dinwiddie, if the Nets wind up selling, that's someone, money's a little bit big, but it's an expiring contract. What does that cost? He is someone who will give you some floor organization, some defensive intensity at points as well. Do you want to play him and Keyonte George? If you trust Keyonte George's jumper, because Spencer Dinwiddie's can wax and wane, but that would be a nifty option. You could throw Immanuel Quickley in here as well. By the way, Jalen Brunson would be a great fit for them if the Knicks really ever just decide to blow it up if their season goes off the rails. I don't think the Knicks are looking to move Quickley in advance of him entering restricted free agency. And you're going to have to give up, I would say, a first-round pick to get him. And he's too important to the Knicks offense right now. I'm throwing out names from the Jazz perspective I'd be monitoring. There's pathways to, if the Knicks kind of continue down this path and quickly staring at a $20-25 million a year contract, do they get a little itchy? So he would be just to try it. He's not the passer that you would necessarily want, but as a defender and someone who's going to stretch the floor. And it's just when you look at who he's a better passer than Jordan Clarkson might be a better passer than Immanuel Quickley at this point. But I'm not trusting, THT or Kris Dunn doesn't have the consistency level on offense that Immanuel Quickley would. I would 100% trade for Kyle Anderson and just start him at point guard. Don't know how gettable he is in Minnesota, but he is entering a contract year. And times of the Utah Jazz and the Timberwolves going to trade with each other, you do get into, all right, what does the defense look like? Because you're going to have Lowry, Markkinen, Collins, and Kessler, and then Anderson. That's really, really huge. But Kyle Anderson should not be defending at the point of attack. And so are you going to start him if Jordan Clarkson's remaining in that unit? That's going to be a no. You can bring Anderson off the bench though and play him at point guard pretty easily and mix and match some of your rotations that way. Another question would be, how gettable is Andrew Nembhard? Would be a really good pickup for them. Someone who's a really good steward of the game. He will space the floor. He can defend up, but he can also defend his own position. He's super cheap. The Pacers, they are using him. I was worried that he might get buried a little bit more than he has. I've actually not looked at how many minutes he's playing. He was at like 21, I think, when I last checked, which I think is based off the players. Oh, he's down to 20 and a half. It's just like, hey, because they have TJ McConnell there, you go after TJ McConnell as well. He's playing less than Andrew Nembhard, but I really like Nembhard. The 3-point clip is fallen off a cliff at the moment. That's still someone though defensively who you can trust as a controlling playmaker. And I think we've seen, look, he will hit more than 12% of his threes. Like he shot 35% on negligible volume this year, but he's not a 12% 3-point shooter. That might actually be my favorite name. I don't know how realistic it is. I would pay money to see them try and get Jalen Pickett from Denver. I just don't think the Nuggets are going to want to give up on him. His sort of just like herky-jerky change of cadence game would work really well. And then 2 more names that they're probably not super. They can't. One of them can't even be traded right now, but just would be interesting if the Jazz were looking to improve. Markelle Fultz entering a contract year. You don't need his shooting. He's become a really good passer, serviceable from the mid range, and he's a really good defender. And then also Fred VanVleet. That's someone who's going to help your defense as well. His 3-point clip has been all over the place this year, just sort of like it was last year. But if he's going to shoot 35% on such a super high volume, that counts as floor spacing, and he can play on or off the ball. Whereas Fultz, you might run into some off ball issues. You have enough space to where you could get him moving off the ball, and the Magic have done a good job of that at points. But I would love those two names. I think my favorite names off this list, and one of them I still haven't mentioned, again, LaMelo would be, I'd love to see him on this roster, but realistically, my favorite names where I could see them maybe becoming available, Tyus Jones, who has to be already available, and just Markelle Fultz and Fred VanVleet and Andrew Nembhard would be my top options. And if I'm saying between Fultz and VanVleet, I think VanVleet's more likely to become available. Matching money, just because of where the Rockets are, matching money might get a little bit tough because the Jazz have they can get the salaries there, but you're looking at like, it's more than THT and Olynyk. Like you need like 3 players to get there unless you want to tap into the John Collins element of it. And I don't know why Houston would be interested. So Fultz would be more interesting from that perspective. And another name I did not mention would be something to maybe keep an eye on longer term. You don't need, when you're looking at, because of how good Larry Markkanen is, and you know that Keyonte George is there, and because of the spacing that I think you can carve out with a bunch of these lineups, I don't know that you need someone to be, you need more of, I'll say, either someone who could be connective tissue, like a Fred VanVleet, or just someone who is good enough as a passer. Markelle Fultz would be an example where it's a league average type passer. And so if you go after Dejounte Murray, depending on what happens in Atlanta over time, these are much longer term solutions. The more immediate one, look, Andrew Nembhard would just be the guy, and Tyus Jones. Like those are the 2 immediate ones. The other ones I'm naming are sort of, yeah, some of them could be available this season. Most of them won't be. Dejounte Murray did sign his contract late enough that I think he can be traded this year. I'll double check that as I'm recording this. The Jazz are not, it wouldn't surprise me if they made kind of a consolidation type trade. Yeah, Dejounte Murray can be traded in January. But like those names, the Fultz, the VanVleets, you would have to give up value for basically all of these guys. Tyus Jones and Nembhard feel like, okay, maybe the cost is low enough that they would make this type of a move. But Dejounte Murray would just be a name long-term because of the defense that he brings. He's not an A+ passer, but he's kind of like a B- passer, which I think is really all this team needs from that position, at least within its top lineups. And maybe that just speaks to more of me being a believer in Keyonte George. It's more so just, can you get an upgrade over Clarkson, Dunn, THT as those guys in the meantime? And I think Dejounte Murray would certainly qualify as that.